Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. I've been out a little bit of the video world here for the last 2 weeks as I've been really trying to buckle down and push this cliff project forward at a faster pace. But it's not done yet, but a lot of progress has been made, and what I thought I would do today is give you and the customer a more detailed look at all of the aspects that I've completed to date and talk a little bit about how I've done some of those things. But because the project is so large, what I think I'm going to do is break this down into 3 segments, and that way, you don't have to sit through 45 minutes all in one go. As you are well aware, I can sometimes be lengthy in my discussion of the aspects and how I did them. So since there's so much going on in this project, we'll split it up into parts. So the first part here will be the structure, the surface of the piece, and how that's come out. The second part will be on the lava. I want to talk just very briefly about how I painted it and how I molded it. And then the final part, the third part, will be the current state of the electronics and how that has been coming along with all its trials and tribulations. So before I get going on too long of an intro, let's take a look at it, and we'll start with the surface of the piece. So before I get into the piece, I just want to mention that the furnace is running right now, and it's been running quite a bit lately. The temperatures in New England have been extremely bitterly cold, somebody might say. So I'm going to have to just work with that as the furnace has been running quite regularly throughout these last few days. But before I give you a good close-up of this piece, which I haven't done in the last couple videos, I wanted to just give you an overall image of how the texture and the color scheme is working with this piece to date. Obviously, I have not painted the structures. I have installed the waterfall. That's going to need a little bit more work. But it gives you a general sense of the overall look that I was working towards. The Point du Hoc piece that was the original inspiration for this has a lot of ochres and sand color in it. So I thought that'd be kind of a nice motif to go with for this piece. And using the foam coat over the surface allowed me to do that, as to basically to use this technique, which is sort of a leopard spotting technique, whereby you put in washes in different areas along the piece and then blend them with an overwash of that. That technique requires basically like open plaster. You couldn't have primed it, for instance, before, because part of the technique is to have that color sink into the plaster, which gives a very nice blended look, and the selection of the colors then is what affects your ultimate appearance. And I will say that I spent a surprisingly large amount of time trying to figure out the colors that I wanted, as this is a slightly different color scheme than I've done in the past, and finding the right sort of ochre colors, the darker shades, bringing in some reds, subtly to try to give this a more varied appearance. That took some time. But I'm very pleased with the color scheme that has come out of this. And one of the things that was interesting is then I gave it a final wash after it was sealed with black, which is, you seal it and then you do a final wash over it to bring out the shadows and the sharp edges. And I probably should have used a different color, because the black ended up settling and it created some very, very dark spots, particularly in the flat areas. Now, I actually panicked once I had done that and ended up realizing that once I put in some flock and some soil and covered that would not be quite as a visual problem as it was, because it was so strong, and because of the texture of the foam coat, it was sitting in a lot of the pits, a lot of them facing up, which looked wrong for shadow. So anyway, this gives you a sense, a visual step back of the color scheme that I've chosen for the flock. I went with something a bit lighter than I have in the past, as I have taken a look at quite a few cliffs and scree slopes and talus piles and those sort of land features, and they tend to have a sort of less lush, if you will, vegetation and soil on them, as these plants and this is at least the way I interpret it, are really struggling to sort of get a foothold and to do some growing. So I ended up staying fairly basic with those colors and kept them on the lighter side to kind of reflect that. So we'll take a closer look here, and I'll show you some more of those surface details, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So here you get a bit of a close-up of the overall texture of the piece, and this kind of gives you a good sense of how some of those colors have sort of come together to make this a nice, little bit more blended, color scheme for the rock. I originally thought I might have to dry brush it to sort of bring out the highlights, as I didn't quite get some of the brights that I expected that I would. It came out a little bit more muted, but overall I was pretty pleased with it and decided that if I tried to dry brush it, I would most likely corrupt the effect. So one of the things that you can see, and actually we'll come in a little closer on this and I'll show you what I mean. You can see, in these facing pits, these upward facing pits, where that black had collected. And I was, like I said, really, really dismayed with the pronounced effect that it had. It was very, very strong. And once I had done the flocking, many of the areas, like in here, and areas like this, and of course, basically this whole face, these were almost completely black, but I'm able to really cover that and bring the piece back to a more natural look. And so this gives you a little bit of a closer sense of the flocking that I've done as well. And this piece, this side, I really, really enjoyed how it came out, where you really get a nice sense of the paths, and you still get a lot of natural rock feel. And of course, there's a little bit less detail in these than I would prefer, so it's something I might try to examine in the future. I did give this 2 coats of foam coat to give it a little bit more protection, but you lose a little bit of detail when you do that, but protection was something that I really wanted to make sure that it wouldn't remain chip-free over time. Oh, wait a minute, let's come in a little closer on this spot and I'll show you what I've done here. So basically, I had quite a bit of a conundrum of what kind of soil to put in underneath the green, and I wanted, I took a look at a lot of, wait a minute, I'll pan down here. I took a look at a lot of pictures of talus from rock faces, and this is a better angle right here. Oh, the camera, you'll look in the bottom corner here. And so the soil color is always, I should say, matching the rock, right? It's literally these pieces breaking off and accumulating down below. But because there are these different colors within the stone, I was really unsure of how best to handle that color scheme. So what I did is I put in sand, playground sand, and then I washed that to seal it with a very dilute color of the overwash of the stones. And actually it was a little bit more dilute than I had planned on, and so it really ended up staying quite a bit sand colored, if you will. But I think it actually is close enough, see here, you can see some in here, that it does actually work with the color of the rock. So I'm reasonably pleased with that. But I really, that was a real conundrum there. So actually, it's very close to the original color of the play sand. In the future, I thought I might take chalk and grind into the sand some of these primary colors, and then mix the sand together and use that so you actually get little flecks of the color of these pieces captured as the different types of minerals in the rock erode. So that's something that I might do in the future. We'll see. A couple last interesting points on the color scheme of this piece, and I'm going to pan back up here, we'll keep rotating, is that areas where I had used a heavier amount of Sculptamold, basically bulking out some of these areas. There are a couple other areas scattered around, areas that I suppose I'm going to recognize more than other people. That ended up with a bit of a darker hue cast on it. Let's see if I can give you a better spot there. So this ended up, with a bit of a darker cast than some of the surrounding areas. And I was a little bit concerned that that might make it stand out, but, I think it works actually quite well. And who knows, perhaps it's weathering from some of the, I don't know, stuff that people are chucking over the edge, if you will, to keep the insides of their emplacements cleaner. Let's just put it that way. And here you can get a sense of the back side of the piece and how that came out. And here you can see one of the one of the cave entrances. And we'll talk a little bit about the lighting in the cave entrances a little bit later. But I should talk about them right now, just in brief. I had originally painted them gray because I really didn't know what the heck I was doing for the color scheme of this piece. And once I ended up with this brighter sandstone type mottled color, I actually had to go back in after they were installed and put in Sculptamold on all the surfaces that I could reach. And there's one spot in one of the caves that I missed. I have to go back in there. And then washed all of those with the same washes that I've done out here. Because it was raw Sculptamold and not the stone, what are we talking about? The Sculptamold, not the Sculptamold. My goodness, you guys are patient with me if you're still here. The foam coat, it absorbed the paint in a slightly different manner and actually ended up giving a very nice sort of ore type color to the insides, and you can get a little sense of that here. Boy, I really was pleased with how those came out after the fact, even though it was a little bit of work to get inside there to do that extra sort of touch-up, if you will. So that gives you a little sense of the actual surface of the piece, some of the techniques that I used, and some of the difficulties and successes, I should say, that resulted from it.